A university professor once traveled deep into the mountains of Japan to meet a famous Zen master. He came with questions, and more quietly, with opinions. The master, whose name was Nanin, said nothing at first. He simply began to pour tea. The cup filled. He kept pouring. Tea rose to the rim, spilled over, ran across the table, and still he poured. "Stop!" the professor burst out. "The cup is full. Nothing more will go in." Nanin set down the pot. "Like this cup," he said. "You are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" For a century, this story has been told as a gentle lesson about humility. But in 1942, a psychologist ran an experiment that revealed something far less gentle. A full cup doesn't just make you hard to teach. It makes you blind, measurably, predictably blind, to better answers sitting in plain sight. And here is the uncomfortable part. The more expert you become, the blinder you get. By the end of this video, you'll know how this blindness works, why it catches the smartest people first, and the one question that empties the cup. The experiment was designed by a psychologist named Abraham Luchins, and it looks almost insultingly simple. You're given 3 water jars of different sizes and asked to measure out an exact amount. The first problem requires a slightly clumsy 3-step formula. So does the second. And the third. Problem after problem, the same long formula works, and your brain, quite reasonably, learns it. Then comes the trick. The later problems can be solved with the long formula, but also in a single, obvious step. A child could see it. Most trained subjects didn't. They ground through the long method, step by step, walking straight past the shortcut. And when Luchins slipped in a problem where the old formula failed completely, many of them froze, staring at 3 jars and finding nothing at all. The control group, people who had never seen the earlier problems, solved it instantly. Luchins called this the Einstellung effect, from the German word for set, or attitude. Experience had carved a groove in the mind, and the groove had become a trench. The people who knew more performed worse. Their cup was full, and it had taken only a few minutes to fill. You might think this only traps beginners with a freshly learned trick. Surely deep expertise is different. In 2008, psychologist Marin Bilalich and his colleagues tested exactly that. They showed expert chess players positions that contained 2 winning solutions. A famous, well-known checkmate pattern that took 5 moves, and a less familiar one that took only 3. Find the best move, they were told. Most of the masters reported the familiar 5-move solution, and when asked, they insisted they had searched the whole board for something better. But the researchers were tracking their eyes, and the eye tracker told a different story. Their gaze never truly left the squares of the solution they already knew. It circled them, returned to them, orbited them, while the better answer sat, unvisited, a few squares away. They believed they were exploring. Their eyes were standing still. The point is not chess. The point is what it reveals. The first pattern that comes to mind doesn't politely wait while you consider alternatives. It actively hides them. Why would the brain work this way? Because most of the time, pattern reuse is a superpower. Expert intuition is compressed experience, a library of 10,000 solved problems, retrieved in milliseconds. That speed is why a radiologist spots a tumor at a glance and a firefighter feels a floor about to collapse. The groove is the expertise, but retrieval has a cost. When a familiar pattern activates, it doesn't just propose itself, it suppresses its competitors. The Einstellung effect isn't a failure to think. It's the winning pattern quietly turning down the volume on every other thought. And there's a second layer to the trap. In 1990, a Stanford graduate student named Elizabeth Newton ran what may be the simplest experiment in psychology. One person taps the rhythm of a well-known song on a table. Another person listens and names the song. The tappers predicted listeners would get it about half the time. The real number was 2.5%. Because inside the tapper's head, The melody is playing, complete, vivid, obvious, and they cannot switch it off. Psychologists call this the curse of knowledge. Once you know something, you lose the ability to imagine not knowing it. Put the two together, and expertise casts a shadow. Your knowledge hides better answers from you, and then hides the fact that anything is hidden. Which brings us back to that mountain tea house. Zen has a name for the state Nanin was offering his guest: Shoshin, beginner's mind. The Zen teacher Shunryu Suzuki compressed it into one line. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. Notice what this is not saying. It is not anti-knowledge. Nanin himself was a master, not a beginner. The skill being pointed at is subtler, to hold everything you know and still look at the problem as if you had never seen it. Modern psychology adds one more warning about why that's hard. Researchers have documented what they call earned dogmatism. The more expert people feel, the more entitled they feel to stop listening. The fuller the cup, the more it resists the pour. So how do you empty the cup without throwing away what you know? 3 practices, each aimed at one layer of the trap. First, always generate a second answer. The Einstellung trap isn't having a first idea, it's stopping there. So make it a rule. When you've solved a problem, solve it again, differently, before you commit. The second solution is often worse. It doesn't matter. The act of producing it breaks the suppression, and every now and then, the second answer is the 3-move win. Second, borrow a beginner's eyes. Newton's tapping study proves you cannot simulate not knowing from the inside, so you need an actual not-knower. Explain your problem to a junior colleague, a friend from another field, anyone without your groove, and take their naive questions seriously. The question that sounds ignorant is frequently the one your pattern has been suppressing. Third, stay bad at something. Regularly practice a skill you're a beginner at, a language, an instrument, a sport. Not for the skill itself, but to keep the feeling of not knowing familiar, so your identity never fuses with being the expert. That feeling is the antidote to earned dogmatism, and the one question that empties the cup. Before any familiar problem, ask, what would I try if my usual approach were forbidden? Forbidden. That word is doing the work. It doesn't ask your favorite pattern to step aside. It removes it from the board entirely and forces your eyes to finally visit the other squares. Remember the professor at Nanin's table. He wasn't stupid. He was full. Everything he knew was probably true. It just left no room for anything he didn't. Nanin had never heard of eye trackers or water jars. He had simply watched full cups climb his mountain for decades and found a way to show one of them to itself, with nothing but a teapot. 20 centuries of sages said, empty your cup. Science measured the spill. That's where the sage meets the science. Next time, a Taoist parable about an empty boat drifting into yours, and why the exact same collision only makes you angry when someone is sitting in it. If you don't want to miss it, subscribe.